to an inside look at the legendary Donnie Burns, MBE, and Heidi Burns. I'm Victoria Regan, and I am here with them both in hopes of getting a deeper insight as to how they think. To get to know the person behind the facade of the champion or celebrity is always fascinating and often surprising. It's my pleasure to introduce Donnie and Heidi Burns. Heidi, by the way, will be joining us a bit later in the interview. We're moving forward to title number 5, and assumingly your most cherished role, that of husband and father.
Yes. If you notice, I said with the MBE, the second highlight of my life, I hope Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth will understand, definitely the number one is meeting Heidi and giving birth to Heidi to Domenico, because that's the ultimate achievement, Vicky. It's everything. It's changed me forever. My life will never be the same. I will never be the same. It's a dimension in my life that is, I could die a happy man at any time just because it happened, really. And it's kind of come full circle, because here I started off in life with this mother who had 3 jobs so that I could dance, and lived for me. My mother lived for me. We were inseparable. I called her every day of my life. The good thing is that every world championship we were able to win, my mum and dad were there to see it. Japan, Oslo, Germany, Miami, they were there. And so you end up living for somebody else as a priority. My priority is Heidi and Domenico. Heidi's the most beautiful, loving, sweet, genuine, sincere person. Domenico is everything that beyond what I would have wanted him to be. And actually my life, I feel my life has come to full circle. And I'd like to, if you don't mind, if it's not too long, I'd like to share with you why he's called Domenico. Because my mother and I were inseparable. Okay, Italian mama, son. And, but my grandfather, my mum's father, died when she was only 2. And his name was Domenico Pacito. And I remember my mum telling me, I was only 6 or 7, the first time she told me that. And she cried because she had never gotten to know her father. And I remember at that age saying to my mum, "Mum, I promise you, when I grow up, I'll have a son and I'll call him Domenico to make up for it." And then I got to 50, Vicky, and I thought it was never going to happen. And I met Heidi. And when I was 54, Heidi got pregnant with Domenico, gave birth to Domenico, and that's why it's called Domenico. So I feel that my life has come to full circle now.
Following those sentiments, I think it is perfect timing to welcome the beautiful, kind, and extraordinarily talented Heidi Burns. Heidi, as I said to Donnie, thank you so much for taking time out of your day for this interview. If it's okay, we're going to move directly into your story. When did your love for dance begin?
First of all, thank you for the very generous introduction from both of you. It was very, very generous. So I started at the age of 3. I started in ballet, jazz, and tap. And I did a little bit of theater. And then later, when I was about 7, we started with swing and with my cousin Benji. And I was trained by my uncle Buddy Schwimmer and my aunt Lori Schwimmer, and they had a studio. And it was just, I started and I knew that was it. That was my destiny. I thought, I am here, I have arrived, and I will never leave dancing. It will be my whole world, and it never changed. We just sustained that love of dance through our whole lives, really. And we were very lucky because Buddy and Lori, I mean, they poured their whole love and blood, sweat, and tears into us, and they were great examples on how to mentor children and coach children, because I've never seen anybody teach children and dancers like that better than they did. So I credit everything really to them. And of course, Benji was the most gifted, unbelievable dancer. And we were dancing together from such a young age all the way up into our mid-20s. And so that was amazing. Just to have that longevity of partnership, which you don't see almost never in the dance world. And we did swing, from 7. And then later, I didn't start Latin American dancing until really 13, 14. So it was a little bit later. But I knew again that was going to be a huge shift in my training. And then it was just mostly Latin and swing that we specialized in. And Benji and I were lucky enough to be the youngest champions ever in West Coast Swing. And we were given the world title. And then we did, of course, So You Think You Can Dance. And then, of course, in the Latin as well, I was lucky enough to have loads of training from Donnie and from various other teachers. So the rest is history, I suppose.
Love and marriage, love and marriage. Before we talk about that subject, Donnie, did you ever think that you would marry again?
No. It's like everything. Apart from the dancing in my life, everything that we've talked about has been unplanned. No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I'd got to 50, Vicky. I was getting divorced, and I was in a very happy, huge house in Surrey, in England, and I had my golden retriever Bonzo, whom I loved dearly. He was my soulmate at that time, and I thought, you know what? This is it now. I'm 50. I'm no longer marketable in that sense. I'm quite happy, and I kind of reconciled myself to it. I'd come to terms with it, and it took me a good 6 or 8 months, and I was actually okay about it. And there was a separate 2-bedroom flat in this property at large grounds, and I thought, okay, well, I'll get myself a butler. So I'd started to do some diligence and interviews about having a butler, and actually one of them was a butler who happened to be gay, and I thought, well, that's perfect because he's going to be more attentive. So then the rest of my life was going to be Bonzo. He's going to have his own separate 2-bedroom flat. He's going to live his life. I'm going to pay him. This is going to be great. Bonzo's going to be happy. I'm going to walk him. I'm going to live in London, and my life is set, thought I.
Wow, Heidi, you won over a gay butler. How do you feel about that?
I feel I have arrived. I have arrived. Go, Heidi. Okay, wait, the first time we met, actually, that's probably where we should take it. The first time we met, I was 7 years old, and Donnie and Gaynor were not 7 years old. And they were doing a show with Ron and Liz, a double show called License to Thrill. And they did this show in San Diego, and they called Buddy and Lori and they said, hey, we need a junior couple to come in because we want to do this thing where, Donnie and Gaynor have just danced, and we want to have the voiceover come and say, well, you guys think you're so great and you're such great world champions. Look who's coming up next, or behind you, rather it was. And then Benji and I were supposed to walk out. So it's really funny because there's actually a tape of this, right? And so that's what we did. And there's this picture of all of us that hung in Buddy and Lori's studio, right? And it's Ron, Liz, Donnie, Gaynor, and me and Benji, like this, right? And of course, Donnie's right next to me like this, and Gaynor's on the other side with Benji. And so Buddy, with his sense of humor, thought it'd be really funny when we got together. So he took a little thought bubble. And this is framed in the studio. He took a little thought bubble above where Donnie and I are, and he wrote, cute couple, huh? And we thought it was so funny. Everybody thought, we tell that story all the time because, who else has that kind of a story? Not many, right?
Yeah, and then again, unplanned, but fate deals a hand. I was getting divorced, and Heidi was splitting with Kevin Clifton, who was a British Latin dancer, was splitting with Heidi. So I said, well, I'll take you out for dinner. So I picked her up in the car, and we went for our first dinner. We went for a Chinese meal to the Royal Garden in Surrey, and we had a Chinese meal. And then that was the beginning, because by this time I'm going to be single again with my dog. Heidi's now partnerless, so I'm life partnerless. Heidi's life partnerless, and dance partnerless. So there you
Okay,
go.
who popped the question? All you viewers can vote on this one.
I hope you can have this on your conscience that it led to the divorce. Heidi popped the question, actually.
No. Wrong answer. He always says this. This is like his favorite thing to do, and he even tells this to Domenico, and then has Domenico believing a lie. Anyway, go ahead with your lie, and then I will correct.
Right, so Heidi was on So You Think You Can Dance. Actually, no, I'll start before that because I'll dig myself out of this ditch. I knew I loved Heidi, and it was clear from what Heidi now tells that she was in love with me. But I was in the car with Sammy Stopford actually, and Heidi and I were having a conversation on the Bluetooth. And Heidi had been offered some parts in Broadway and in Desperate Housewives, and we were talking about it. And when I finished the phone call, Sammy said to me, "Can I just say something?" And unusually I said yes. And he said, "You and I both know this is the one." And I said, "Yeah." So by that time, I've realised. And then I came over because Heidi was doing the 100th special and So You Think You Can Dance. One of the numbers that won an Emmy with Travis Wall and a few others. And I came over with her. And we were at the port, at the ferry, because Heidi lived in New Jersey, in Cliffside Park. And we were at the car park at the ferry. And that's where Heidi asked me to marry her.
No. Okay, so not true. Anyway, what happened was it was actually Benji and I that were doing a show in there was a Broadway theater that they used, and a whole bunch of dancers in New York got together and did this huge charity benefit. And that was what we were doing. It was with Benji, and so Donnie was staying with me at my apartment in New Jersey, and so we'd gone over for that. And on the way back, we're in the car park of the water taxi, because that's what we took.
So that part we agree.
Yes, right. And he looked at me and he said, "Heidi," he said, "would you ever consider marrying me?" And I just looked at him and I thought, yes. It was as simple as that.
So we came over, we got to the Beverly Wilshire where we stayed, and I phoned Heidi's dad, and he said, "Yeah, I've agreed to meet you on Tuesday. Come down to the house. And it's just going to be you and I, man to man, because I'm the head of this household." So, okay, I went to meet him, and I met her dad, and we talked.
I wasn't to be there.
No, I know your mom.
Yeah, I don't know what I did. I went somewhere. I went in another room or whatever. It was like their moment.
A couple of hours.
Of reconciliation.
And I talked to Heidi. I checked there were no guns. I talked to Heidi's dad for about 2 hours. I really liked him. He was a really nice guy.
Yeah, he did say that. He did say at the end of it, he said, "Heidi, it went really well, and I really like your dad."
I said, I really like him.
And actually, now they have a great relationship, and my parents absolutely adore him, which, I mean, how could they not? Because he's such an extraordinary person, for sure. Yes.
And I get on well with Heidi's dad. He takes me to the hockey. And we watched the Anaheim Ducks lose last week, so I consoled him. So yeah, it's different now.
So then, based on what we have just learned, Chet ended up liking you and giving you permission to marry his daughter.
And on the day, he came up and kissed me and said, "Of course you have our blessing, Donnie. We're absolutely thrilled that Heidi and you are going to be as one."
And fast forward to 4 years later, again, my understanding, the miracle happened.
Yeah, that's a funny story, right? We were teaching in Kiev. We flew from LA to Kiev, and Heidi was on the treadmill, and she's always like the Duracell bunny. Heidi's bionic, and she was getting tired. And so she said, "I'm so tired." And
I was getting really tired, as in we would be teaching in the gym, and then I'd go in the room and I would fall asleep. And then he would be like, "Well, it's really nice being married to somebody who sleeps in our spare time. All you want to do is sleep." And I kept saying, "Donnie, I'm really sorry.
I'm so tired.
There's something that's happening. It's like my body's shutting down. I cannot stay awake. You don't understand me. I can't stay awake."
And I said, "You're
and I'm
probably
like,
just
"Man."
jet lagged."
Yeah, and I kept thinking, gosh, the jet lag is hitting me so hard this time. What is wrong with you, Heidi? Like, you know?
And with the Kiev flights, you can't connect back to LA, so we had to stay overnight at Heathrow at the Sofitel.
Yeah.
And so we're at the Sofitel at London Heathrow, and I wanted to get to the room quickly because my team Celtic were playing in soccer. And we stopped at Boots the Chemist, and Heidi bought a pregnancy test. And so we go in, and I'm lying, got my feet up, I'm watching the match, and I honestly thought Heidi was pregnant. because I had thought that from the UK in the January. And I'm watching the match and I heard this scream from the bathroom that it was positive. And I thought, okay, don't let her get too carried away, just try. So I said, oh Heidi, it's probably a false positive, test again in the morning. So we waited till the morning, she tested again, and that was positive. And we came straight home to LA, went straight to the doctor on the ultrasound, and it was that hard.
Yeah, so we didn't know that I was pregnant until I was 7 weeks pregnant. So it was later on. So it makes sense why I had all these symptoms. And I'm like, what's wrong? And everything wasn't wrong. Everything was right. Very right.
Yeah, very much so. And so, you know, then it goes, here we are 9 years later. He's 9 years old and he's called Domenico. My dream came true, my promise from my mom.
He's the best boy.
He's the best boy.
The best part of our lives, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, now we're in the present, and your most recent title together is that of authors of the Latin Tech, also known as BLT. It's a beautiful book. I understand you had 5,000 pre-ordered, and it's beautiful because, of course, the content, the new principles, it's in color, and very important, user-friendly, because anyone over 40 can read it. Tell us your experience and process with this baby.
We like to think of it, Vicky, as a system. It's a system for getting people to dance where they can get the mechanics so honed, hopefully to perfection, that they don't have to think about the mechanics anymore and they can just express themselves and perform. And it's a system. Wally was fabulous at systemization, and I don't want to mislead people that Wally's book is finished now, because it's certainly not, it's still there, but the sad reality of the fact is that Wally passed in 2003, I think it was.
Yes.
I actually did his eulogy at his funeral. And during the ensuing 20 years or so, people would be asking, you know, Wally's gone. Wally and Julie used to own the copyright on that book. The IDTA were just the printers, is my understanding. And then eventually Julie sold out a few years later, and now the IDTA have the whole thing. But you know, when Wally passed, there was no iPhone 1. And here we are on the iPhone 13, and you know, life has moved on. And the incredible body speeds that have been introduced into Latin. I like to think that Gaynor and I helped to pioneer some of that. I mentioned that before. And it wasn't in the technique books. And some of the figures, for example, as written in the book that Julie Laird introduced to us, the batucada in samba, some of the swing figures from West Coast Swing, the sugar push, the switchback in rumba. These figures have become classics. And they've earned the right to be in the technique, but they're not in any techniques. And then it's all, you know, man and lady, and we've got leader and follower, because it's, you know, it's gender appreciative. And so the whole thing we've tried to make user friendly, and we wanted it to be everything that we dreamed it to be, to give back again. We want these kids and these dancers, whether it's a beginner or a world champion, we want to be able to share our knowledge with anybody and give back again. And so, funnily enough, I was sitting in China one time and they were talking about they wanted to create a university or an academy. This is a few years ago, and they wanted to get the dancing into the actual schools, not dance schools, but the educational system schools in the People's Republic of China. And I said to them, well, the first thing you'd need with that, and I wasn't thinking of doing the book, I said the first thing you'd need is a uniform technique for everybody. And in China, they're very, very forward thinking, but of course they have I always say to people, it's not just about the Chinese difference in the brain, it's also the communist system. They're very systemized in China. It's a fabulous system, and you know, look what it's created. And I said to them, you'll have to have some sort of systemization. And they said, yeah, that's okay. So then they came back to me about 6 months later and said, we want you to write a book. And I was like, no. Definitely, this is another one of those, right? This is what I'm saying, like the World Dance Council. No, whatever Chinese is for no, please teach me it. No, I don't want to do a book. It's a thankless task. And I said it would take a minimum of 2 years, and they wanted a ballroom technique book and a Latin. I asked Marcus about the ballroom. He didn't want to do it, he didn't want to know, which I understand. And so I went to Rudy Trouts. He agreed to do the ballroom. And eventually Heidi and I agreed to take on the Latin. And we said it would take 2 years. And in actual fact, it took 4.5.
The main things that Donnie wanted, that I wanted to do, is we wanted to make it user-friendly for the beginner all the way up to the champion. And we did that by just basically, breaking down the system that we've used, that we've seen success, obviously analyzing what great dancers do and figuring out a way that we can communicate it. And the one thing that is so cool is, when I'm teaching Domenico or Donnie's teaching Domenico, we have the books and we can show him things. And even him at 9 years old, he just started dancing. He said to me, "Mom, can I have my own set of books?" He's like, "Oh, because I really like it." He's like, it helps me understand. And I was like, great, this is the whole thing working. This is exactly what we wanted.
He loves to read.
And he of course he loves books and he loves to read. So that was like a great testament to like, okay, what we were thinking is actually working. It actually works for the beginner all the way up to the champion.
Also, Chorus came to life, and Ricardo and Julia did that to give back. It's their company with Chris Stevenson at MBE. They asked us if we would teach online for Chorus, and we've done that as well. And the World Dance Council, the Amateur League, we all gave free seminars online that people could watch for free because there was no other way. Dancing cheek to cheek and social distancing are just incompatible. And so the dance world was hit terribly. But during that time, we were able to come up with the BLT, and we wanted to, we couldn't understand why no technique books were colour, why there weren't 5 books instead of 1 so that you could just pick and mix. When we decided to do them both. And then when we went to the printers and got the pricing, then we understood why there were none in colour and none in 5 books instead of 1, because it was 5 times more expensive, and colour's 4 to 5 times more expensive than black and white. But then we decided to stay with that anyway, because it's more user-friendly.
We've talked about the importance of technique and the book, but if we could talk a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, and that is performance skills. In your opinion, can it be taught? Is it DNA? That X factor, you both had it. The likes of Michael Jackson, you've mentioned him before. What do you think?
Perhaps to a certain degree, Vicky, but I think there's obviously some truth in that. Some people are born with a sense of charisma, projection, performance. It could be, Bill Clinton or JFK, they have charisma. It could be, as you say, Michael Jackson, I'm sure, he's a one-off, for sure. But I think a lot of it can be developed. I don't think, it's terrible having written a book, I don't think technique is primary as a priority. I think it's secondary or maybe even tertiary. I think going out, not having to think of technique, that is just huge. The actual performance is to bring out the spirit of who you are. And the spirit of who you are is everything. That's how people managed to escape from Colditz. That's how men landed on the moon. It's that spirit of who you are that can take you beyond what you started with and transport you into places that only the human spirit can go. And there's definitely a part of that is like the 4th or 5th dimension. Not everything in life is tangible, not everything in life is teachable, but you can still use you can use the appliance of science to take you to the moon. And I believe that in dancing, that's what people do. They go to the moon on a regular basis, and they win when they do that. And that is to be able to transport your spirit with a mixture of science and your initial spirit. Yeah, it's incredible for me. When we met Heidi through all those shows in Germany, we must have been to 10 or 100,000 or 500,000 dance schools in our lives. And they all share a love of dance, and they're all businesses, it has to be. But how many people go to a dance school in the beginning because they have a message in their heart and their soul? And how many of them finish dancing never having delivered that message? Sometimes it's the last thing they learn or ever achieve, because they're so busy learning it that message gets put to the back of the shopping list. Competition dancing is a results business, Vicky. People get upset when they don't win or their pupils don't win. It's a results problem. And so if you've got great technique and you're in a great place, you have, as they'll say in soccer again, oh, why does he score goals? Because he gets in good positions. If you set yourself up for success, you're more likely to have success. And that's where technique can help. If you set yourself up to be in good positions, in time, in your weight, you have choices. We see it in the winning zone. Average dancers or good dancers go where they have to, when they have to. Brilliant dancers go where and when they choose. And that's the difference. So I don't think technique is primary important, but it can be important subliminally to set your soul free.
So there's two types of dancers. The ones that eat and sleep and live and breathe their craft, their art, and the bad ones. So what am I saying with that? We actually have that quote in the book too. What I'm saying with that is that when you have dedicated so much and you have worked so hard to achieve the highest skill that you can, it gives you a confidence. One thing that Donnie and I are very much kindred spirits on is the dedication to the art of dance. We love it so much, and we spent so many hours in the studio. I had no problem, living in the studio, really, and neither did he. And when you do that, when you're standing and you're just about to go out and dance, where you're competing or doing a big show, whatever, you have a confidence knowing, you know what, no matter what happens, I have done my work. I know I've done my job, and you let go and you let God, and that's what happens, and you perform. And so to be a great performer, I think you have to have that confidence, knowing that you have done everything you could to achieve the highest skill you could have. And that, of course, a lot of that is mechanics and technique. However, sometimes you have to really, again, as we say, you have to feel, you have to let go. And that really comes with having control and command of yourself and your audience. If you look at the greatest performers the world has ever seen, and I'm not talking good, I'm talking great, they have control and command over their audience all the time, and they never lose focus. So I think that's an integral part of a great performance and performer, is that focus.
In closing, you've both done so much. Is there anything left? And how would you like to be remembered? Donnie, you go first.
Oh, good questions again, Vicky. Is there any more? As I've told you, apart from the actual dancing part, everything in my life is nothing that I've planned. So every time I would have answered no to that question, something else comes up. So inevitably, I'll say there will be, because I don't think there is. How would I like to be remembered? I don't think anybody gets to write their own epitaph in life. People get judged when they pass, and then sometimes that judgment changes. I've seen people in history, and sometimes I think history has judged them unfairly, and sometimes history is very benevolent to them. So I don't know if I have that right. I would hope it would be somebody who lived a life of love, actually. I loved what I did, and I think I was spectacular in nothing at all. I was average at everything except a relentless work ethic. And I think I would like to be remembered as somebody who just loved dancing, loved to serve people, and then loved to give back, because none of my success would have occurred without people giving back to me for nothing in return. And relentless work rate, and a loving, the most important thing, I think a good Catholic husband and father who gave everything he could to his wife and his kid. That's really the most important.
I'm shocked when he said that he he feels he was average at everything, and except, what was it you said?
Work ethic.
Except work ethic.
ethic.
I was like, no. I mean, Donnie clearly is average at nothing. He's exceptionally talented, and really, I think he will be remembered as one of the greatest talents of this century, really, because, I mean, I don't think, for so many years, the Latin dancers and the dance industry has basically, how should I say this, has lived off so many things that he pioneered, from figures to, I mean, the men used to wear cat suits until Donnie Ramontes changed it. You know what I mean? So there's such a huge impact and legacy that you really can't put into words, and he's too humble to say it. And maybe, but I think it needs to be said, because, you know, I think the dancers know it, but it's never talked about enough from my point of view, from what I can see. So that's, you know, and I watch him too, you know, with being World Dance Council president, he has the responsibility of 60 member countries on his shoulders. He has a lot of people's lives, you know, that he needs to impact in a very positive way, and he does not take that responsibility for granted at all. And I see, you know, we'll be working 14-hour days, and somebody will come up to him and ask him for a favor or ask him for something, and he'll stop what he's doing and he will right away try to help the person. And I see it all the time. This is like a non-stop, ongoing thing with him, is his ability and his love to help people. So I think that should also be known, because a lot of people don't see that behind the scenes. You know, this is an unpaid job that he does, and so much time and energy goes to it, and all he's doing is trying to help people. That's really, and I know this because I'm with him all the time. So you ask, where do we go from here? Well, I drive Donnie nuts all the time, every day, because I'm very hyper and I'm always taking on more and always trying to do more, right? And so the reason why that is, I think, is because there's a quote that really touched me that Tony Robbins always says. He says, if you're not growing, you're dying. And that is really what motivates me. So I hope to be remembered as, first, a woman of faith, a good wife and mom. Professionally speaking, I hope that I can be remembered as a skilled dancer, and I hope that the dancers I train can remember me for giving them some sort of inspiration and making a positive impact on their life.
I would just like to add that how I would remember Heidi, not that I'll be there, but how I would remember Heidi is maybe underappreciated in a way, although she's had so much fame and success. Offered parts in Desperate Housewives, offered parts on Broadway, fabulous on the piano, just anything to do with music or movement. Heidi's maturity level has always been decades beyond her years. Her choreography is breathtaking. And you'll see, hopefully from some of the clips, when Heidi danced with Benji and when she danced in some of the shows that she did. I mean, it's breathtaking stuff. She was a child protege when we saw her at the age of 7. So I think you should be remembered, Heidi, as the most incredible dancer, and anything to do with movement or music. Unbelievable.
Our goal was to get to know the person behind the champion. I think we've done that. Certainly for me personally, it's been wonderful, a lot of fun, and I'm sure for those watching, the same. I think what you've brought to this interview are the elements of a great performance. That is, from joy to tears to education and spiritual enlightenment. I thank you both very, very much.
Thank you so much, Vicky. It's been fun for us as well. I think
Sure.
we should record our thanks to our very gracious hosts, Arthur Murray organisation, and Phil Masters, and John Kimmins, and the whole board, the franchisees. They've brought us all here. We're here because they're there. And
the feel-good factor is off the charts for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We've enjoyed it thoroughly. You're very good at opening people up, that's what I say.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I thank all of you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. And I think I can speak for the three of us in saying we look forward to seeing you on the dance floor.